GAU Studios.
Hey there gamers, D3 here, once again with Shraman from Phoenix Covenant, and today we're going to learn the basics of the game and also solve a few puzzles.
Yes, we are.
So Shraman, whenever you're ready, plunge me into your world.
Let's get started. So Phoenix Covenant is Magic meets Final Fantasy Tactics, and like many games of this ilk, your basic goal is to reduce your opponent's life points down to 0. That's the first dial on our wonderful counter. Each player is going to start out with 30 life points, and you're attempting to whittle that down. Now, in order to understand how you go about doing that, we have to understand the basic part of the game, which is a unit. Unit are black bordered cards. They all have 4 basic characteristics. Force, which is the sword and with a number on it. It indicates how much damage a unit does when it makes an attack.
Awesome, so your attack power.
Yes. Ranged indicator, which tells you whether a unit is a melee unit or a ranged unit. In this case, all of the units on the board right now have dimmed range indicators, so they're melee units. They only attack the square in front of them. And that tells you that there's actually facing in this game. So units can face any of the cardinal directions, as in a traditional tactics game, and melee units must face the thing that they're attacking.
That makes sense. I mean, I've never seen anyone attack something that's behind them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, maybe Legolas could do it. So, in this case, the Legion Knight could make an attack against the Shield Maiden, and it would do 2 damage. And what does that mean? Well, the Shield Maiden actually goes down to 6 hit points, which brings us to our third characteristics, hit points. Hit points is the amount of damage a unit can take before it's defeated. If you attacked the Shield Maiden successively through the course of 3 or 4 more turns, you would ultimately reduce the Shield Maiden's hit points down to 0, and it would be defeated. Defeated units go immediately to the defeated pile of their owner. Okay,
now just to get this clear, when the Legion Knight attacks the Shield Maiden, he doesn't take damage in response being the aggressor, right? It's not like other card games in that way.
Yeah, there isn't a fight mechanic. It's a one-sided, you attack and do damage, and on your opponent's turn, they will have a chance to respond, you know, in a similar fashion.
Okay, good to know. I think I can handle any challenges or puzzles you're going to put my way.
We'll see. We're getting to the most important characteristic, which is movement, which is represented by this winged boot right here that has a 1 on it. So most units are going to have 1 move, and what a movement point buys you is the ability to move into any adjacent unoccupied square, including diagonals, which is a little bit different than most tactical games. So you can move right here, and at the end of each move, you turn to face any direction you want.
You just flanked him very deftly in 1 movement.
Yes, and indeed, and that is important because all units have armored sides, unarmored sides, and weak points. When you attack an armored side, you actually only do half damage rounded up. So I actually misled you before when I said this attack would do 2 damage. It actually only does 1 damage, which would leave the Shield Maiden at a pretty hardy 7, and it would take you 7 more turns to defeat my unit.
Okay, so like maybe a few hours from now, I would have the Shield Maiden down in the defeated pile.
Exactly, and I would definitely have beaten you by then, so...
Let's not be so hasty.
Well, yeah. That move that we demonstrated before, where you move here and turn to make a valid melee attack, is actually tremendously useful because now you're attacking an unarmored side, you do your full force damage, and you're going to reduce the Shield Maiden down to 6, as we had originally. For my Shield Maiden, though, on my turn, it's a little bit more difficult. Even if I move around to your side, I'm still attacking an armored side, and I'm only doing 2 damage, which is pretty sad.
Legion Knight's built like a fortress.
Yeah, exactly. Like a truck. What I want to do is get around to your weak point. When you attack a weak point, you get a critical hit. And when you critical hit with your unit, your force value is actually damage and a half. So in this case, 3 goes up to 4.5, which rounds up to 5. All damage is rounded up in this game. 5 damage is pretty meaningful against the Legion Knight, which would go down to 3 hit points, and next turn I'd be able to defeat your unit.
Yeah, that's significant.
Yeah. So that actually brings us to our first puzzle. With your 2 units, the Legion Knight and the Kagetsume Samurai, your goal is to defeat my Shield Maiden in 1 turn. And this is illustrative of what you can do in a turn, which is you can use all of your units, and you can continue to use them until they're exerted. And attacking causes units to exert, so you're only going to get 1 swing with each of these guys.
But they can move and attack?
Yes.
All right, so I'll start with the Legion Knight, because that's the one I know best. You've already shown me the best way to move with that one and attack. Since I only have 1 winged boot movement point here, I can't get around to the back, but I can get to the side, and since it's unarmored, I can deal my full attack power to him there.
Indeed, you've reduced me to 6.
All right, now, we're gonna bring in this samurai who I don't know much about him, but I see he has four sword attack power, 6 health, which doesn't really matter because you're not attacking me back, and 2 winged boots.
Yes.
So, using your adjacent movement property, I can move here, correct?
Yes, you definitely can.
But I've still got 1 left.
Yes, you do.
And he's got this red eye here, and I really want to get him in the Eye of Sauron there. So we'll move here, and then I'm allowed to turn,
yes.
correct?
Yes, every movement ends with a turn, and movement doesn't cause
And I've still got an attack, so I'm going to wing that 4 damage in there, but it's not 4. It's 1.5, right?
It's 1.5.
So that's 6.
Yes, and you have defeated my unit.
Crushed. It took much less than the 7 turns you had predicted.
Yes, exactly. In a single turn, truly you are a champion.
Champion. That's all I ever wanted to be. So I've beaten the creator of Phoenix Covenant.
Indeed.
There you have it.
Don't get cocky, you know. That was the easy demo.
Oh, come on. What's next?
Pretty much all the other mechanics that are going to matter to you guys. We built Phoenix Covenant to really be streamlined and relatively straightforward. We don't want a ton of rules to be thrown at you. And so, you know, these demos will present 98% of what you need to know to play the game. And the first additional... Well, so I saw your Legion Knight, and I thought since he was built like a brick house, I would have one too.
Oh, well, that's not fair.
Yeah.
And he's moved up to him, so there's like a wall going on here.
Yeah, it's a sweet formation.
It's like a phalanx.
You should really learn from me.
Okay, Sensei.
Yeah. In order to beat my formation, your goal again is going to be to defeat both these units in 1 turn. We're going to have to give you a few more things, which will, of course, illustrate more about the game. The first thing that we're going to give you is a ranged unit. So,
good, artillery. I needed that.
Exactly. So ranged units have an undimmed range indicator and present a min and a max value for range. In this case, it's 1 to 2, which means it can hit anything that is 1 or 2 squares away from it.
Whoa, that's huge.
Yes.
That's like 25% of your board.
There are units in the game like this which have a hard range value, in this case 2, which means they can only hit something that is 2 away. Their min and max
so he's like
2.
the siege tank of this game.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha.
Ranged units are interesting because they fire indirectly.
And they have weak points all around them, apparently.
Yeah. Well, you know, they have to be weak in some way, right?
That's true. Archers are kind of babies when it comes to swords. I gotcha.
So if you wanted to attack my Legion Knight, you don't have to worry about hitting your Shield Maiden or hitting my Legion Knight. All range units fire indirectly, so they just kind of fire over and off.
So he's like arcing the shots over these other 2 guys?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Because he fires indirectly, though, he's not able to hit weak points. And the way that you assess what side you're hitting with a ranged unit is you just do closest edge or closest corner. So if you declare an attack against the Shield Maiden from this position, you'd be hitting this armor. If you attack the Legion Knight, you'd be hitting an unarmored side. And if you moved here, you'd think that you would be, the closest edge is this one. You'd think that you're hitting a weak point, but since it's a ranged unit, it can't. So you treat it as an unarmored side.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
sad
a shame.
for you.
I want to backstab with my arrows.
And that brings us to a hand. So in any card-based game, or deck-based game, you generally have a deck in front of you, and you're going to start the game by drawing from that deck and playing cards from your hand. And so for this demo, we're actually going to have 2 cards in your hand that are representative of the things that would be in your hand in a full game. Your hand's going to consist of units and spells.
Okay.
We can ignore the abilities that are on these cards for right now and just go over the details of units and spells and how to play them. So first of all, how to play things. All entities in the game, all cards in the game have a cost. And that cost is indicated by the 2 gems in the upper left corner of every card. And they correspond to the resources that are on your resource dial.
Okay, so this card would cost 2 yellow and 2 blue.
Yes, and that's 2 command points and 2 mana. We like to think of them as the minerals and Vespian gas of our game.
Perfect, another StarCraft reference.
Exactly.
I'm all over this.
Because command points are pretty exclusively used to play things to the field. Mana is used for playing units, playing spells, and certain unit abilities. So it is really like teching up your creatures in a way.
Gotcha.
So how you gain these resources in a full game. For Magic players out there, it's relatively straightforward. It's as if you were handed 2 lands of your choice each turn. For those of you who have never played Magic or a CCG of its ilk, the way that we'll explain it is at the start of each of your turns, you gain 2 essence points. And these essence points can be used to increase the max size of either your command point pool or your mana pool. So you can, on your first turn, go up to 1 and 1. You can instead go up to 2 and 0, or you can go up to 0 and 2. Those are your only 3 options. And then once you spend that, so say on my first turn, I spend 2 command points on a sweet first turn commander. Then on my second turn, at the start of that turn, my pools all refresh to their max value, and I gain 2 more essence points.
Good, so that avoids like mana issues, like running out and not having a land to drop or something, so you always can play to your curve.
Exactly, and so on my second turn, I can increase to 3 and 1, or I can go to 2 and 2. And if I had this Tundra Explorer in my hand that you pointed out with the 2/2 cost, I could play it to the field. These go back down to 0. On my third turn, they'd go back up to their max values, so on and so forth. And that's how the economy grows, and you're just able to play more and better things as the game goes on.
All right, so what is our puzzle here?
In this case, you have a unit in your hand that you'll be able to play. We'll be setting your command points to 6, and a spell in your hand that you'll also be able to play since we're setting your mana to 6. Spells are one-time effects that resolve immediately, and then the spell goes into your defeated pile. So you pay the cost, resolve the effect, and then place the spell in your defeated pile. In this case, you have Lightning, which deals 4 damage to any target unit on the battlefield. So you choose a unit, it takes 4 damage, there's no like armor or anything that comes into it, it's just 4 flat damage, which is pretty nice. Spells in the full game have 2 speeds, tactical and strategic. Tactical spells can be played at any time and in response to anything. Strategic spells can only be played on your turn, but still may be played in response to things, which means your opponent does something and you can play a spell that changes how that thing goes down. And we'll have examples of that later.
That's good, so you can have like subterfuge and kind of interfere with what your opponents are doing.
Exactly.
That's good. That's how I like to play.
The last thing before we get to the puzzle actually takes us back to the goal of the game, which you guys might be wondering by now, how do I achieve it? You still haven't told me how. Well, because we now know that you play units to your side of the field in your home row, and behind your home row is your base, which is where your life points lie, and that's behind any of the squares in your home row. Since we understand how melee units and ranged units work, the simplest way to explain how to do damage to your opponent is really just walk up to their base, and as long as your unit is in range, you can make an attack on that base and do damage that's just done flat. So in this case, this samurai moves up and does melee damage that's equal to 4, which is its force, to my face. For a ranged unit, you just count out range. So if you're here, it's 1, 2, you're not there. If it's here, 1, 2, you've done it. Right?
Okay.
You can punch me in my face.
So you really are like a physical entity on the field.
Yes.
As long as they get close to you, they can damage you.
Yeah, you can put the hurt on me. So one would imagine that if you can only play units in your home row, and they come into play exerted, which is a rule I haven't told you before, but they come into play exerted, which means you can't use them on the turn you play them, that it would take a while to work across the field and actually get to my base and do damage to me. And we don't want to take 4 hours of your time. So we actually have these hard points on the board. When you move a unit and attack a hard point, the damage is actually dealt to the player, which is nice because hard points are closer to you than their base. But kind of sucks because hard points have armor on all the sides, so you do damage inefficiently. Hard points can also...
They're tough.
Yeah, they are. Hard points can also be used to construct structures. Structures exist in your side deck, which is always accessible to you and provide a strong local benefit, a weaker regional benefit, or a pretty weak global benefit to you. Huh. And they're used as strategic pivots for you throughout a game. Based on how it's going, you pick a structure that really bolsters a winning strategy or shores up a losing one.
So they're kind of like the nexuses and towers of MOBA genre stuff.
Yeah, something like that.
You've got MOBAs, you've got trading card games, you've got Final Fantasy Tactics. It's
a little bit of everything.
It's awesome.
What the blacksmith does is it allows an adjacent melee unit to gain +2 force until the end of your turn, and the melee unit can move away. And so now we get to the puzzle. You have 3 units, you have a structure, and you have 2 cards in your hand. Your goal is to defeat my 2 units in 1 turn.
In 1 turn. All right, so I've been thinking about this as you've been talking. So this guy gets, what's his benefit from the blacksmith?
He gains 2 force.
2 force. All right, so let's put a marker on that. So he's got 6 force currently.
Yes, he's got a lot of punch face right now.
So assuming I can get this Shield Maiden out of my way, his 6, if he hits a weak point, should destroy that Legion Knight instantly.
That is
So
exactly
I just
right.
need to get rid of the Shield Maiden. So I'll move my Tundra Explorer over here, and then I'm gonna attack him from here.
It's going to do 3 damage because you're hitting an unarmored side.
Okay, so he's got 5 left. Then I'll move this guy to the side here, attack again. So he's down to
3.
3. And then I guess I'll play Lightning from my hand.
Which does the 4 remaining. I presume you're doing it to the shield main.
Yes, absolutely. And then once again, my Samurai buddy, we're gonna move him to the weak point and swing for ridiculous 9 damage.
Beating me. Besting my
Was that the
my
best
horseman.
you've got, Shraman?
Well, there is definitely more to come.
Man, I can't wait to play you for real. Now that I know the basics, I am ready to go with this thing. I mean, it combines all the aspects of all my favorite games. This is going to be awesome.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Shraman. That's what we've had today for the basics of Phoenix Covenant. Tune in next time for some more advanced tech and maybe even some versus.
Yes.